Hi, everyone. This is Nora, and I am joined this evening by Jacqueline Hamilton.
Hi.
Hey, Jacqueline. She has three Maltese dogs. How old are your dogs?
They're all 9.
They're litter mates.
Yes.
Okay, super. Three Maltese that are litter mates. And I invited her to talk this evening because I saw on a post that she had shared in the group that her dog had recovered completely from IBS. And that's such a common complaint these days among dogs. And vets are really showing themselves, even the holistic vets are showing themselves to be pretty ineffectual at coming up with a proper way to deal with it. So what RMF does, of course, is it just takes the cause away, because obviously when you have any kind of chronic inflammation that's going on in an organ where food is passing through every day, you have to look at the food. I mean, wouldn't you look at the food? That would be the first thing to look at, right? So, the vet industry might do that, but they'll go, oh, there's some intolerance or there's some allergy or this or that, and kind of break it down into small, instead of going, no, this food that's going in is all wrong and it's causing inflammation. We need to change the food, not to another brand. We need to change the food to the kind that dogs are supposed to be eating, that have been eating since they began life on this planet. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and start asking Jacqueline some questions. I don't know much about her dog or the situation or anything, so we'll find out about it together. So, hi, Jacqueline.
Hi.
Thank you.
Nora, for having me. So just to give you some background about my dog, I actually have 3 Malteses. They're 9 years old, but the one up until the age of 6 years old, they were all vaccinated, fed kibble, and then I transitioned all of them to raw with mixed veggies and added supplements and oils. And then about a year into raw, he started having skin issues, and then IBD for 1 year straight, diarrhea, very lethargic.
And this was after raw?
This was after raw, but I was mixing in the veggies.
Right. And were you using some kind of commercial raw food, or were you doing it at home yourself?
I was actually doing it at home myself.
Okay.
So I would actually, he was getting raw chicken, chicken breasts with mixed veggies. Then I noticed his skin started to get bad. So I switched him to ground organic turkey, store bought, and still mixed veggies. And of course, added supplements that the holistic vet recommended, and oils. And so still skin issues, and he just started having diarrhea every single day, just very lethargic. We went to
were you giving him bones at this point, or just the meat?
Just the meat.
And when you went to the holistic vet, did they ask you about diet? Did they talk to you about that?
Yeah, they did kind of. They actually had, they actually recommended a supplement to fill in the gaps where he wasn't getting any calcium or bone. So they added, we were on this a brand called Standard Process. And she said, well, whatever's missing in his diet, that should suffice and fill in any gaps. So we said, okay.
And they didn't say anything to you about feeding bones. They just said, well, bones are missing, so we'll give you this supplement that will fill in the gap.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oh, curious.
So, and I think their fear was, okay, well, bones, they could choke, it could rupture inside them and all this stuff. So, supplements were the way to go, and that was it. And so yeah. And so diarrhea for 1 year straight, very lethargic.
Because you may not know that even what you were feeding right then, just without the mistake of combining it with plant foods, could produce diarrhea, because bone is what bulks up the stool, right? So
absolutely.
That's the first thing that a holistic vet should say. Well, is this dog eating bone?
and in hindsight, it's it's sad because I mean, well, what I've learned is veterinarians, even holistic veterinarians, because they have the same education, they don't know anything about nutrition,
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
And they're clueless about it. They're not taught that in vet school. So they're trying to wing it, you know?
And
So
there's really no way for them to learn it once they graduate, because there's no school out there that teaches dog nutrition except the ones that the vets will, endorse, the ones that the vet industry has set up, they call themselves board certified or whatever, but they don't teach them they teach them commercial pet food. They teach them how to pick a good commercial pet food. They don't really teach them anything about the true needs of a dog. And Lauren Whiteman and I are going to tackle that issue in a video next week. That should be really fun.
yeah, I would love to listen to that video. Yeah. I came to learn that all veterinarians, holistic, I don't care. I mean, we've even seen well-known holistic veterinarians, and what they do know how to do is treat the problem, but they never focus on the root cause. And
Right.
what I've learned through being in your group is the root cause is 100% will always be diet. And so
Right. Yes.
that was the aha moment for me. And so, yeah, so we did several allergy testing, and he was allergic to everything. And he was even allergic to grass, according to the
Yeah,
allergy testing.
that's
Go
common.
figure, grass. I
Yeah.
mean, and then he was prescribed several homeopathic no-sodes, tinctures, still no improvement. We even did a fecal transplant.
Oh my goodness.
Again, no improvement. We did ozone therapy via rectal insufflation. That seemed to work at that given time, but as soon as we stopped administering it, he would go downhill and he would just be lifeless. So, and then they wanted to do surgery to see if he had
what exactly would they have done surgically? Like remove part of his colon or something?
To see what was in his small intestines, because they
So
couldn't figure
it
out.
would be like exploratory.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
So we opted out not to. And so we spent thousands of dollars on vet visits. I mean, Nora, I can't tell you, I literally would cry myself. I don't want to think about that, but it was part of what I went through. I would literally cry myself to sleep every single night because he was so lethargic and on his way to his deathbed. So, but I was desperate. And I prayed every night. And it wasn't until someone randomly recommended the Facebook group RMF, or Healing Diet for Dogs and Cats.
Where did that happen? Where'd you see it for the first time?
I was part of this Facebook group called BARF.
Oh, okay.
And
very popular. I think they have like hundreds of thousands, lots of members.
Yeah. And somebody recommended your group, and I said, what is this about? And that's when I joined over a year ago, and I started doing research and reading. And that's when I purchased your ebook, and I just took off with it. I was like, this is it. It's, so I'm excited.
So what's the first thing that you did so you read the book and you decided, how did you decide on like a protocol? What did you do first off?
Well, I read the book and I was kind of confused. I was reading the testimonials, and Kelly had recommended was it Kelly or Lauren, start off with a 6-to-1 ratio. 6 plant days and one meat day. And if you're afraid of fasting, in which I used to be, don't fast. Just do a 6-to-1 ratio, 6 plant days, 1 meat day. And I did that. And I tried to reduce the number of plant days, and he would have diarrhea again. So what I did was I just stuck him on more plant days, because what I've noticed was the plant days were more gentle on his belly. And within 1 week, he and another thing, kind of backtrack, but when I initially started him on the 6-to-1 ratio, I just did sweet potatoes because I was so afraid to introduce new different plants. So I just did baby steps, baby steps. I did sweet potatoes. Okay. He had a firm stool the next day. Okay, good. I'm going to introduce quinoa. So I did quinoa. Okay. Still a firm stool. Okay, great. And within 1 week, he was active. His stools were firm. And over time, I started increasing his meat days. And now he's on a 2 plant days, 1 meat day, and 1 fast for 32 to 36 hours.
Okay. And was he having trouble digesting meat when you first started introducing it? Was he still having diarrhea?
Not the kind of diarrhea that he used to have, because the diarrhea that he used to have, he was having bloody diarrhea. He did have looser stools. So what I did was I actually, he was on the chicken. I switched him to quail because I noticed that the bones are more smaller and they're softer. Yeah. And that just suited him, and he loves quail. He loves it. So
where did you have a lot of trouble finding it where you live? Yeah. Or did you order it?
I ordered it online up in the East Coast. Yeah. My puppies are spoiled.
It's pretty expensive because they ship those things frozen. So yeah, the shipping is outrageous.
It is. But I was just, for me, I mean, they're my peace and they're my quiet, and I love them. And so I would do anything for them. And so it was like a no-brainer. I said, okay, well, I'm going to switch him to quail. And he's been on quail. We do some chicken liver we add in there too. And he loves it. I mean, the other day we had a baby bird in our backyard, and he was fasting. It was his fast day, and he caught the baby bird. And I was like, oh, kind of freaked out. But, in the back of my head, no, that's his natural instinct. That's what he's supposed to do.
Right. So. Did he eat it? Did he eat it down the hatch?
I had to pull it out of his mouth, honestly. He was going to eat it, but actually he gave it to me. I said, drop it. He gave it to me. He's such a good boy. I said, drop it. And he gave it to me. And then we have a fig tree, and the figs are not ripe, and it drops on the ground, and he hands them to me like, I can't eat it. It's too big for my mouth. But that's his way of saying, can you help me? So.
That's interesting. Do they eat the figs that are ripe that fall to the ground, or I don't know if figs actually.
Sometimes they're unripe, but yeah, they'll try to eat it. If it's too big for him, he'll give it to me and help me. Yeah, so I can help him. So break it down.
Figs are so good for dogs. Dogs love figs. I've hardly ever seen a dog refuse figs, fresh figs right off the tree.
Yeah. We have a whole bunch in our backyard that's on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
I have to make sure, get away from the fig if it's meat day. So
you're so lucky. I love figs.
Yeah.
So a year ago you started feeding him RMF. And how soon before? I mean, it happened pretty quickly, huh? Like a week later.
Yeah, it was a week. I mean, he was his active self again. He was just beginning to be more hyper, and I would say it was a week, and I was still monitoring his stool because I was still paranoid. I'm like, okay, is this way of feeding the right way? Because we went through so many different, we went through kibble, we went through freeze dry raw, we went through raw and all different kinds. And so nothing would resolve it. And then I was just reading, kept reading, like, just stick through it. Don't give up, don't lose the hope, because if you've been feeding your pup the wrong way for so many years, you can't expect overnight results. And I think
Right.
it just, so many people want overnight quick results, and it doesn't happen that way. I would say, like,
Mhm.
on plant days, his stool was firm. Meat days, it was a little bit
Mhm.
on the watery
Mhm.
end.
Mhm.
But eventually it resolved itself, like it
Right.
corrected itself, and his stools are firm.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So
Well, what you went through is so typical, and it's typical in human health too, where somebody gets sick, they have a diagnosis, and they try everything that the allopaths have to offer. They try everything that holistic medicine has to offer, and then eventually, if they're lucky, they'll find their way to natural hygiene. And in the dog world, I mean, we see it all the time in the group where people will show up with 15-year-old dogs that have been misfed their whole lives. And even in those situations, sometimes we have amazing, miraculous turnarounds, but sometimes we don't. And it's because sometimes the body just doesn't have anything left.
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just so much abuse. And that's, the human fasting practitioners get that all the time, where somebody's been through the whole gamut of every kind of medicine you can imagine. And then they show up on the doorstep of a fasting practitioner and go, okay, I'm ready to fast for 30 days and expect to be healed. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, it's not the fault of removal of cause. It's the fault of the previous 10 years, 15 years, or whatever. But what your situation is proving is that even after many years, I mean, your dogs were 8 years old, right? 8 years old with chronic IBS. And within a year, they're healthy, normal dogs.
Healthy. I mean, this has been such a blessing. I mean, again, we just spent so much money, but I was desperate, and lo and behold, somebody recommended your group, and I was because I'm a researcher. I research things to the very end, and I that's what I did. I read every single post. I wanted
Oh,
to read
great.
everything, and I just took off with it, and I did it, and I mean, for those people who are struggling, they can't expect overnight results when you've been
Yeah.
feeding the wrong way, when you've been prescribed toxic medications,
Yeah.
or even holistic no-sode medications,
Right.
whatever it may be. Um, you can't expect overnight results. It takes time. And I knew, you know, what did I have to lose? you
Right.
know and I had everything to gain because he was getting better. I mean, I saw it from my own eyes. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, even on plant days, he's so hyper for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, when is it meat day? I need it. Because he's
You
so
need some
hyper,
meat coma.
and he's extremely hyper when I give him watermelon. When I do a watermelon day, he
Hmm.
loves it. He just runs around. And then another thing too, I didn't mention in the post, but prior to starting RMF, he actually had a torn ACL, or what do they call it, a cruciate ligament in his
Yeah.
knee, and
Hmm.
he was limping. And he was on supplements for that, and he was
Was
still,
that, Jacqueline, was that diagnosed?
yeah.
What did they do the test? They do the drawer test, so it was definitive. Did they determine if it was a partial? It must have been a partial tear.
It was a partial tear, but
Hmm.
the interesting was when he tore his knee. I called the vet. I was in a panic, and they said, "Oh, you need to come down here right away and get surgery. Like the next day, surgery is a must." And I'm like, okay, okay. And so scheduled an appointment, and that night, because I am a researcher, I started researching, and
Hmm.
I said, well, no, I don't. I don't feel like this is right in my heart to do that, to put him through that. What other alternatives are there to get him better? And then I reached out to this holistic vet. She's prescribed supplements. It worked for maybe about a month, but then he was limping again. And so when I found your group and changed his diet, he doesn't limp anymore. He jumps off the couches. He runs around like he's 2, 3 years old. I mean, I can't control him, especially on plant-based. So,
Great. That's
yeah.
super. Yeah. There is a time limit with these, it's called a CCL in dogs. There's a time limit because I guess after a certain period of time, it can't be fixed surgically because something happens. I don't know, the ligament starts to heal or something. But so the part of that might have been legitimate, but most of it is probably just the fear mongering that you hear, from vets all the time. Oh, be afraid, be very afraid. So it's very self-serving.
Yeah.
So, but another thing I was going to say is, even though you do spend a lot of money when you order special foods that have to be shipped frozen or whatever, look at all the money that you spent on vet bills, and that wasn't making your dogs healthy. This is making your dogs healthy.
Absolutely, it is. And it's so simple. It's so simple. It's it's sad that I'm going off on a tangent, but it's sad that we live in a society where we're all about let's treat and prescribe and never really well, what is the root cause again? Well, what is it? And it's always going to revert back to diet, always diet. I mean, even after finding this way of feeding for my pups, I started questioning, well, what are we supposed to be eating? Like what's our species appropriate diet? And then that's when I started reading at your website, and my triplets are 100% frugivore. I'm still trying to transition. They're frugivores.
Great. How old are they?
They're 4.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah, and they're frugivores, and they love it. They love their fruit. Oh, they love it.
You're not going to have any childhood diseases, if you keep that up.
Yeah, and well, it's funny because they were born premature, and I don't want to get into it, but they were born premature, and they were always sick. And we were on a standard American diet, and I switched them after they've been a frugivore for 1 year, and they have not gotten sick. Actually, I take that back. They've had a day fever, and that has been gone. It's because I know that when your body runs a fever, or even your dog, or if they're not feeling good or whatever they're doing, it's the body trying to heal itself. And
Right.
That's what I did, which is allow them to heal, allow Alvin to heal, just give it time. But with the triplets, I mean, they're never sick.
Yeah. And that's going to last as long as they keep eating properly, that's going to last. And I mean, everybody thinks childhood disease is just inevitable. Something happens and it's just a rite of passage or whatever. No, it has a cause. Mm-hmm. And the doctors aren't taught about causes, just like vets aren't taught about causes. Yeah. So anyway, well, wow, it's 8:00 already. So that's probably all I needed to hear. I mean, I wanted everybody to hear what your story was. I had no idea it was so amazingly successful, especially with your kids and everything. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Nora. You've been such a huge blessing for me and my family, my pups included, because they're our family. They're my peace and my quiet. But yeah, I have so much gratitude, and I'm just so thankful for you and for all the mods. And when I recommend the Facebook group to people, I get so excited because I know this is the right way. I know this is the truth. So thank you so much.
And thank you. It's so gratifying to hear stories like yours and to know that this information's finally getting to people who would not have found it if somebody hadn't gone into a group and said, hey, try this thing, you know, it takes a lot of patience to do that, because sometimes you get a lot of hostility from people. You
Yeah.
know, they don't want to think outside the box.
They don't.
You
Yeah.
know. Anyway, so thank you so much, Jacqueline, and we'll see you on the group. And hopefully this has inspired lots of people who are struggling with their IBS dogs to start thinking outside the box and
don't give up, because
not give up.
Yeah, don't give up, because you have to stay with that process. Don't give up, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to turn this thing off, so I'm gonna
Okay.
be fumbling with that for a minute. So
Okay.
thank you so much for
you.
talking to everybody tonight.
Okay.
Bye, Jacqueline.
Bye.